Good afternoon and welcome into Minnesota Vikings Now. I am Tom Downey. We will break down some more mock draft targets potentially for Minnesota. We're going to begin today with the defensive coordinator search, still ongoing, and some new intrigue being added to this open job in Minnesota. We know of 4 interviews that have either been concluded or are now no longer options. The first one there, Ryan Nielsen, the former Saints co-defensive coordinator, has taken the outright defensive coordinator job with the Atlanta Falcons, so cross him off your list. 3 names have interviewed kind of a while ago. Brian Flores, who I know many of you would like. He's a very popular target for all the open DC jobs right now. Also in the mix as the Arizona Cardinals head coach, so probably a factor in why Minnesota's waiting. Although there's a new name that's emerged, because that in a little bit, that is also a factor in the wait. Mike Pettine just feels like a fallback candidate. Sean Desai, I'm quite intrigued by. Thought he did a fine job with the Bears. It was not their fault that team was bad. It was the offense's fault before his regime got fired, and then helped in Seattle this past year. So I like Flores. I like Sean Desai. And the other name, per Kevin Seifert of ESPN, is Ejiro Evero. Allow me to report what Kevin reported. The reason the Vikings search for a defense coordinator has been quietly is that, per sources, they're waiting to see if they can get an interview with Denver Broncos Ejiro Evero. At the moment, he's a candidate for the head coaching job in Indianapolis and in Arizona. He's also a prime candidate just to come back to Denver and be the DC under Sean Payton. In the event Evero gets the ability to go interview elsewhere, teams like Minnesota and more would have interest there. He's also, of course, gets the head coaching job, cross him off. Evero and Flores, if you can land one of those guys, it's a home run hire for Minnesota. There is an obvious connection here as well. Ejiro Evero and Kevin O'Connell, the, of course, Vikings head coach, spent 2 years together on the Rams coaching staff. If you were able to land Evero, I think that would be a massive get. Yes, it's the Ed Donatel 2.0, yes, but also no. I think Evero's younger, more willing to adapt when needed, and it's coming off a fantastic year. Despite the offense in Denver being really bad, he was actually really good. The defense was 5th in total yards, 6th in passing yards, 16th in rushing yards. I don't care when you're number 5 in total yards. 7th in points. They had a bunch of starters out down the stretch, too. This Broncos defense fared very well to them. If you could land him in Minnesota, it might only be for a year or two before he gets a head coaching gig, but it'd be a strong hire for Kevin O'Connell. Here's what Zach Stevens reported on the situation involving Ejiro Evero. To be clear, Evero is under contract with the Broncos to be their defensive coordinator. If he gets a head coaching job, the Broncos can't block that. He'll be gone. But if he doesn't get a head coaching job, Sean Payton will decide whether he stays or leaves. Now, there was a report that Payton was going to try to bring Vic Fangio along with him. Well, Payton goes to Denver, and that had some bad blood there. And in the end, Fangio took the Dolphins defensive coordinator job. So if for some weird reason Sean Payton goes, I don't want Ejiro Evero, I'm all for Minnesota going hard and trying to acquire Evero to take over for Ed Donatel. Beyond that, I'm looking at Brian Flores and then Sean Desai. Who is your top coach for the open Vikings defensive coordinator gig? Maybe it's Brian Flores. Get to him more in depth in a little bit. But I want you guys to let me know at the pinned comments of today's video. So if an ad break comes here on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there and let us know. Let's talk more about Brian Flores. The search at this point for the DC is heavily involved for Flores, but he's also waiting on, in particular, the Arizona Cardinals to make their head coaching hire, which at this point I think we are in the at any day they'll make a decision stage. Indianapolis, meanwhile, might take longer because they're doing a potential 3rd round of interviews, which is just feels like they're just trying to get anyone but Jeff Saturday if you're the GM and ownership who wants Saturday there. GM not so much. He is the betting favorite right now to be the Cardinals head coach. Some names they've interviewed, both Ejiro Evero and Brian Flores, which means in theory, one of them could end up in Minnesota. Aaron Glenn, the Lions defense coordinator, Lou Anarumo, the Bengals defensive coordinator, and Mike Kafka, the Giants OC. There is a trend on that top 5 list, right? There's one offensive mind on there. It's all defense beyond that, which does make sense coming from the all-offense Cliff Kingsbury-focused coach. And, You want maybe a bit more of a disciplinarian. I think Flores would be a great fit in Arizona. And, of course, I would love to get him in Minnesota. So how excited would you be if the Vikings ended up hiring Brian Flores? Scale this for me from 1 to 10. It's 1 on the low end, 10 on the high end. Unfortunately for Minnesota and several other organizations out there right now, it's kind of a waiting game. Outside of a couple jobs, the OC, DC spots that are open don't get filled until after the head coaching jobs get filled. And there is, of course, the risk if you wait too long, your backup option might leave. Now, I think you could still get one of Ejiro Evero or Brian Flores, but that could also cost you Sean Desai potentially. If you end up missing, let's say Evero stays in Denver, Flores gets the Vikings head coaching job, and then you're looking at, oh, well, we got to go to Sean Desai. What if he gets a different job? There are multiple DC jobs open. I thought he did a good job as the Bears defensive coordinator after being a longtime assistant coach. He's only 39 years old. He is currently the associate head coach and defensive assistant in Seattle. I think he's worthy of a DC hire. I would have no issues if that's my worst case option. I'd rather bring Desai in than I would bring in Mike Pettine just because, well, we all have memories, right? So when the Vikings hire their defensive coordinator, we will have a video for you guys ASAP. Make sure you are subscribed. Hit that sub button, youtube.com/@Vikings today. We got free videos pretty much every single day for you here on our Vikings YouTube channel. We won't be doing a live watch party for the Super Bowl. That ended when the Vikings playoff run ends. But you can still bet on the Super Bowl. Chatsports.com/bet. Promo code CHAT125 gets you 125% deposit bonus. That's chatsports.com/bet. Promo code CHAT125. You can bet on the outcome of the game, the Super Bowl MVP odds. The Eagles are the betting favorites, and that's why Jalen Hurts is the betting favorite to win MVP. Almost better off, by the way, just picking the quarterback that you think the team is going to win because the odds are more in your favor there because it's MVP versus just the winner, right? Mahomes plus 130, Travis Kelce plus 1,000, A.J. Brown, Miles Sanders. It'll probably be the quarterback, and that's why it's such a big betting favorite. Go check it out, chatsports.com/bet, promo code CHAT125. Before we go, look at some mock drafts that have been out there around the NFL. In particular, the latest one from The Ringer. And they had the Vikings taking Josh Downs of North Carolina at the back end of round 1 in the latest mock draft. I always love The Ringer's player comparisons. That's just fun for me. Downs, 94 catches this past year. Only 1,000 yards. Is still really good. 11 touchdowns. I drawing a blank on what their player comp was. I'll pull it. It was Elijah Moore for them, right? I liken Josh Downs to Tyler Lockett. I think he could actually play on the outside, but he's mostly been a slot for North Carolina. Doesn't bring you a lot of yak ability, despite his quickness and speed, but is a downfield threat. And that is Tyler Lockett's scouting report currently. Here's what The Ringer and Danny Kelly wrote. Adam Thielen isn't getting any younger, and his cap number blooms to over $19 million in 2023, making him a potential salary cap casualty. Even if he works out a deal to stay, the Vikings could use more playmakers around Kirk Cousins. Can line up both outside and in the slot, and would be a nice compliment to Justin Jefferson. I think that late round 1, after you get past the Addisons, Quentin Johnston, Jack Smith and Jigba, etc., that late round 1 guy to the mid round 2 is very similar. So I've got no problems with Downs going in that range. Undersized, listed at 5'10", 165, probably about right from that standpoint. Was really a slot only at North Carolina, but he's very fluid. He's got very good hands. He had 3 drops on 116 targets, 2.6%. That is elite production from a actually catching the football standpoint. Actually had higher numbers last year in 2021. 101 catches, 1,335 yards, 8 touchdowns. Had 10 drops, still only 6.9% because he had 144 targets. So Downs is a really good football player. High contested catch rate, too, 72.2%. Not what you would think from a guy that small. Offers some short area quickness. The big negative for me for Downs, he doesn't bring you a lot after the catch. Only 4 yards on average, 7 forced missed tackles. That's a little bit lower than what you would like out of a receiver. It's certainly no Quentin Johnston. But when you're that fast and you're able to make catches, it's normally okay if you're a little bit limited yak-wise. just like Tyler Lockett is. So do you want to draft a wide receiver in round 1? Let me know what you guys have to say in the comments section. D for your drafting one, or P for you'll pass on it. Sound off right now.